Hey, gang. Okay, so for those of you who have been here for a while, you know that I'm usually a little late to the party when it comes to community drama. There's a good reason for this because I like to chew on things for a while and I like tempers to cool a little bit before throwing another match on the fire. That said, let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that have popped up in the last month or so. Let's get this. So, how do we want to do this? Shit sandwich? Every other? Let's go every other. Let's start with the first little bit of drama. Most people are over this one, but let's talk about the Idris event. I won't beat this dead horse any more than necessary. The short version is that the response to this event was tepid at best, and there's some good reasons. I know when CIG first announced it, the first thing I said to my org, who was getting a little excited about it, was this: you're not going to see an Idris on any server that doesn't have a giant org or a giant streamer on it. So I don't really fault CIG for this. This was very clearly and very transparently a, yeah, ham-handed attempt at a marketing event. It was so obvious that it ended up rubbing pretty much everyone, even the people that got to participate, the wrong way. I see what CIG was trying to do here. The goal was to get a lot of video footage of people fighting over an Idris, which is going to be the star of Squadron 42, which admittedly would have been awesome to see. People would clip big orgs storming the decks of an Idris for an actually pretty huge prize, an Idris M. For those of you who don't know, the Idris you can buy outside of a very few exclusive, read expensive packages is the Idris P. That's the stripped down civilian version. The Idris M is the military version that you'll be stationed on in Squadron 42 with all the bells and whistles. It is a nasty, nasty ship, and it hasn't been sold since around the time of the Kickstarter. Again, outside of those massively expensive packages that basically give you every ship in the game. Even the Idris P sells for around $1,500. So getting one for free, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. On its face, this event seemed like an easy win. But to make it worth the effort for CIG, they need to be judicious about where they drop the thing, particularly since they'd be crewing it up with, again, paid employees of CIG. And yeah, I heard rumors that there were NPCs one out there, but I never saw one, so let's just call that conjecture right now. This felt like what I expect to be the inaugural media blitz as they build up to the launch of Squadron 42. CIG is going to have their hands full trying to generate buzz with a project that's been in development for 10 years or so, and out in the wider gaming community doesn't have the best of reputations. So CIG really needs to climb up and over that hill of negativity, and pretty quickly at that. And this Idris event, well, okay, hopefully for the sake of Squadron 42's success, some lessons were learned. Let's move on to some good stuff. So this little gem popped up on a sneak peek, and yeah, this is pretty cool. One thing that kind of bothered me about the instance hangars, and this was a small bother honestly, was that there wasn't a way for your ship to have arrived in that hangar. Of course, there's a lot in this game that we have to suspend our disbelief in, so this was just something that I accept as a necessary evil. Our ships had to poof into existence. This image suggests that ships will actually be called up on an elevator into the hangar, a lot like the freight elevator, eventually. Maybe with this patch, but definitely one day. Maybe. Probably. And that's kind of cool. I have to admit, I do kind of miss the days of the hangar module. For those who weren't here during that time, the game used to be just a hangar. You could call up your ship and walk around in it. You could decorate up your hangar with all kinds of funny and cool stuff and really personalize it. Well, buy stuff with real money and personalize it. The idea, the dream, was that one day those hangar doors would open and you just fly out into the verse from a personalized hangar. Of course, the reality was something else due to the limitations of the engine at the time, and now, really. And those limitations are about to lift. And that is pretty cool. We'll be able to have our persistent, personalized hangars back, and that dream of finally being able to open the doors and flying on out into the verse from wherever you decide to call home, including your base, one day would be very, very neat. I imagine the hangar would have to be instance, and it wouldn't jump into the station or the location of your hangar until you actually made the request to launch. Then it would spawn your hangar into that location or ask you to hold until a spot became available, which, now that I think about it, might or might not be a problem. You see how many hangar entrances there actually are at Lorville these days? The answer? Lots. So that's something to look forward to, and possibly coming up this year. Maybe 323, maybe. We'll see on that one. I think server meshing needs to be fully online before that'll work properly, but I think we'll get something of a preview in 323. Okay, so back to drama. I can't really tell if this one's burning itself out or not, but it seems like there's two, maybe three camps, maybe four. Of course, the two big ones are the competitive PvPers and the casual gamers. And right off the bat, I'll say that this game was made for both. And both have valid gripes and ideas they're trying to bring to the table. I think everyone can agree that the flight model we currently have is kind of janky, especially since CIG is going to, at some point, have to crowbar in a nearly completely different flight model for atmospheres. If they had opted for an expanse style, fully realistic physics model, this wouldn't be so hard. But okay, so let's jump to my next point early. This is a Chris Roberts game. That sometimes gets lost in all these discussions. Chris Roberts came to the community in 2012 or so and said, if you give me the resources, I will make the game I always wanted to make. The game I always wanted to make. And we said, yeah, take my money. But here's the thing. This is Chris Roberts' vision, not ours. It's the game he wanted to make, not necessarily the one we all wanted. And when I say that, I mean it has elements that everybody wanted, but also elements they didn't. And because this is Chris Roberts' game and vision. That's just the truth of it. CR wanted slower, closer fights so people could actually see these really cool ships as devs have spent sometimes years working on close up in all their glorious detail. Is that realistic? Absolutely not. Is it stuff full of 80s sci-fi nostalgia? Yup. So CIG is not going to speed things back up just because PvPers like that, or because the people wanting more realistic combat want that, because this is CR's game and ultimately that's what he wants. This is not DCS in space. This is Chris Roberts' game. Okay, feel like I've hammered that point in enough, so let's get into the arguments and what the hell, I'll even throw in my own 2 cents. So I think we can agree that there's at least two big problems with the current model. One, there's too much jousting, and two, the light fighter dominance. Now, I've already said in my mild speculation vid about combat that I think the light fighter dominance will diminish a lot when armor comes in. But as the game is right now, the vehicles that are dominating aren't surprising at all. They have tiny cross sections, high DPS, and high mobility, both in maneuverability and top speed. The larger vessel has zero chance against a light fighter, at least if it has a competent pilot, because it can just continuously stay in the blind spot and utterly dominate and control the engagement. A lot of the competitive PvPers are coming from games like, let's say, Star Wars Squadrons or DCS. And these competitive players tend to be more or less hyper-focused on the fighters with the smallest cross-section, the greatest DPS, and the greatest maneuverability. And this colors the kind of game and flight model they want to see in Star Citizen. I would think the way to balance this out, at least with the fighters, so light, medium, and heavy fighters, would be to focus in on the mobility side of the triangle. So again, that triangle is mobility, weapons, and defense. So the lights would have the greatest speed and acceleration, but low maneuverability, while the heavies would have the greatest maneuverability, but low top speeds and acceleration. It seems, at least to me, like this would mean that the light could disengage and run and do hit and run harassment attacks, but the heavy would have a chance to pop the light as it gets into range thanks to better maneuverability that the heavy possesses, along with longer range weapons. I do think that they should also nerf the weapon range on lighter fighters. Lights couldn't pull that trick with just hugging a blind spot and frustratingly plank a bigger ship to death without ever having to worry about retaliation. And they'd be more relegated to their real role of being scouts and harassers. Their job, the job of the lights, is to find the enemy and then distract them long enough for the ships with the killing power to arrive. And then mediums would be shoved in between when you're not sure what you'll be facing. And of course, armor will throw a wrench into all of this because the lights will have paper thin armor and the heavies will have relatively thick armor. And with range, particularly with escort duties, obviously the heavies will have much longer range. And by here, I mean like actual traveling distance, not the range of the weapon. So what's a TIE fighter doing way out here kind of thing? For multi-crew ships, crank up the tracking velocity of turrets. So the ship itself doesn't necessarily have maneuverability, but the turret does. Right now, turrets are fairly slow in comparison. And I'll piggyback in on Avenger 1 and say that fighters should have a range nerf. Outside of the Ares, pretty much no fighter should be able to outrange a Corvette like the Hammerhead. I don't know. That's my thoughts, having played other PvP games and seeing what works and doesn't work in them. Everyone has an opinion, am I right? But back to my original point, at the end of the day, this is CR's game. And when he starts seeing the metrics he wants to see, the footage he wants to see, that's where the combat is going to land. But CR's also shown that he's open to suggestions. Just that he's not going to compromise his vision for them. So people hoping for The Expanse or Star Wars Squadrons might be disappointed. I think the key will be dialing in that maneuverability versus acceleration and the gimbals, and probably knocking down the gun sizes on lights. And well, we might lose some of the people that are big into the competitive PvP scene. I'll leave that up to you if you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Note, I'm not saying anything about PvP in general. Star Citizen is a PvE game with PvP elements, but those PvP elements are pretty key to the fundamental structure of the game. I'm specifically talking about competitive PvP. Call them the duelists. I think the PvE groups need to realize that PvP is a planned part of this game. But by the same token, like I said at the beginning, the PvP community needs to realize that all the people that join this game to do something else are not just idiots that need to get good at combat. Not everybody gets the same rush from combat. Not everyone is a secret PvPer just waiting to be set free. Some people only have 30 minutes to log in after work and just want something sedate and fun for them. No matter what you think of it, combat is never calming, you dig? These people do not want to spend months of their lives getting good at combat when combat is something they have zero interest in. That's not the gameplay they find fun. They shouldn't be forced into a loop they don't want to engage in. Now, put your keyboards down for just a second. I'm not talking about a PvP slider. I'm saying that another player should not be forced to learn a loop that one group personally enjoys just because that group personally enjoys it. Everyone shouldn't be forced to learn mining, for example, just to play the game. That doesn't mean that people won't be ever attacked by some other player, just that being able to dogfight should not be the entry pass into this game. The solution is not that everyone needs to make sure they can pop an Idris in their Prospector Aurora. It's that the game needs the mechanics and economy and reputation and law systems in place to make it viable to hire escorts, to avoid the fight yourself and let someone else do that for you. And the game just isn't there yet. And yeah, master modes clearly need more time in the oven, obviously. And yeah, this one's getting beaten to death, so on to the next one. Back to good. So another sneak peek, the Zeus, at least from these sneak peeks, looks like it's just screaming along the production line. And that's a good thing, as it fits a pretty cool niche that's kind of lacking. Just right in there around the freelancer, cuddy, and spirit in size. I've started leaning towards the spirit, speaking of that, as my daily driver lately, and yeah, I'm not mad about it. I'm still wondering if they're going to rework the Apollo into that Dorito shape, or just stick with a mildly outdated, at least for the more recent RSI ships, style guide of the concept. Oh, and I still say that this ship from Sitcon is a Spirit E1, but I'm guessing we're getting real close to seeing if I'm correct or not. Hopefully it is, because adding in the passenger loop would be pretty cool, and not one a lot of people are expecting anytime soon. I'd just be surprised if they are doing the E1 and passenger game loop under wraps. Which brings us to... So I'll wrap this up by saying later this week, okay, if I'm being honest here, probably by the time I have this vid edited and out the door, we'll have seen the new roadmap numbers. We might be in the window where they actually update the deliverables view. And we can finally see what's really on the agenda for this year. Keep your fingers crossed, y'all. Finally, the gag is off Evo. Can't share a picture or vids, but we can talk about it, which is still pretty huge. Provided they ever run another test build that isn't during my real life working hours, I'll give my thoughts. Or I suppose I could just talk about the patch notes, but there's tons of channels that do that with almost no context, and I don't want to add to that mess. So until then, see me next time.